had always dreamt of visiting Rio de Janeiro, the city of samba, beaches, and vibrant culture. It was my first solo trip, and I was eager to embrace the adventure. Little did I know that my journey would soon take a spine-chilling turn. On my second night in Rio, I decided to dine at a quaint little restaurant nestled away from the bustling streets. The warm Brazilian night air, filled with the sounds of laughter and music, set the perfect backdrop. As I savored my meal, a man sitting at the bar caught my attention. He was tall, with a rugged look, his eyes locked on me, sending shivers down my spine. I tried to dismiss the unease creeping over me, but his unwavering stare was unsettling. I paid my bill and made a quick exit, hoping to shake off the feeling. But as I stepped onto the dimly lit streets, I realized I was not alone. He was there, lurking in the shadows, following me. Panic set in and my heart raced. I quickened my pace, darting through winding alleyways and crowded squares, but he was always behind, like a relentless shadow. Desperation clawed at me, and I decided to seek refuge in my Airbnb. Once inside, I locked the door, my heart pounding like a drum. I watched through the peephole, and to my horror, he was still out there, pacing, waiting. The night wore on, and the suspense was unbearable. As dawn approached, I dared to check the peephole one last time. He was gone. I let out a sigh of relief and felt a flicker of hope. But then I noticed a small, blood-red rose lying on the doorstep with a note attached. The message was simple but bone-chilling. "I'll find you." Fear gripped my soul. I knew I had to leave that place immediately. Gathering my belongings, I headed to the police station. They assured me they would investigate and advised me to find a safer place to stay. I left Rio, my dream shattered, but my life intact. The nightmare was over, but the fear still lingers. My advice to anyone traveling alone: be vigilant, trust your instincts, and seek help when needed. There's a fine line between adventure and danger, and sometimes it's best not to cross it. The dimly lit diner had always been my refuge. Its worn, checkered floors and the soft hum of the neon lights provided a comforting ambiance amidst the darkness of the late night. As the waitress on the graveyard shift, I was used to serving the occasional oddball, but none quite like Trevor. Trevor was a man in his 40s with disheveled hair and a perpetual grin that sent shivers down my spine. He came in every night, ordered a black coffee, and sat in the corner booth, staring at me as I moved about the empty diner. His eyes bore into my soul, making me uneasy. He never said a word, and yet his gaze spoke volumes of unspeakable things. Each night I hoped he wouldn't return, but Trevor was as persistent as a shadow on a moonless night. I felt his presence like an unwelcome specter. The minutes crawled by, and my heart raced whenever he'd enter the door, his unsettling smile widening as if he knew the fear he instilled. One fateful night, as I was closing up, I glanced outside and saw Trevor standing there, watching me. Panic coursed through my veins. I locked the door and called the police, but when they arrived, Trevor had vanished into thin air. The stalking continued, growing more insidious. He'd leave sinister notes and gifts on my doorstep, like a deranged admirer from a horror film. His messages promised eternal love, while his actions screamed obsession. I couldn't sleep, my dreams plagued by Trevor's haunting presence. Desperate, I installed security cameras, and the footage revealed Trevor lurking in the shadows, always nearby. I couldn't escape him. He had become a nightmare that refused to fade with the dawn. As I trembled in fear, a letter arrived one evening, and it was different. Instead of the usual ramblings, it contained a chilling photograph. It was a picture of me, taken from inside my own home while I slept. My sanctuary had been breached. That night, I decided to confront Trevor. I returned to the diner, where he sat in his usual booth. I approached, my voice trembling, and asked, "What do you want from me?" Trevor's eerie grin stretched even wider, and he replied, "You, my dear, I want you." With newfound courage, I called the police once more, and this time they found Trevor. They arrested him, and I watched as they led him away, his haunting smile replaced with disbelief and anger. Now I serve coffee to the late-night diners with a sense of newfound safety, but the scars remain. Trevor taught me a lesson in vigilance and self-preservation. My advice to you, dear listener, is to trust your instincts and never underestimate the danger that can lurk in the shadows. Protect your sanctuary, for there are Trevors in this world, waiting to invade your peace and haunt your dreams. The night was dark and gloomy as I stepped into the dimly lit, run-down diner. Its flickering neon sign buzzed eerily, casting long, ominous shadows on the deserted street. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale coffee and burnt pancakes, but I needed the late-night shift to make ends meet. I was a waitress at this lonely establishment, working the graveyard hours when only insomniacs and wanderers wandered in. But one night, a customer arrived who would change everything. He was a man in his 40s, with greasy hair and a lecherous smile that sent shivers down my spine. He called himself Victor and immediately took a liking to me. His orders were simple, coffee and pie, but his eyes never left me. I could feel his gaze following my every move. As the nights passed, Victor's infatuation grew. He came in more frequently, always requesting me to be his server. His advances became more overt, his comments more explicit. My coworkers noticed, but they turned a blind eye. They called Victor a harmless regular, but I knew better. One night, as I left the diner, I felt a presence behind me. My heart raced as I quickened my pace. Footsteps echoed in the dark alley, and a hand clamped down on my shoulder. It was Victor, his lustful grin now twisted into something sinister. "I can't get you out of my mind," he hissed. Terror surged through me as I pushed him away and ran for my life. I made it home safely that night, but Victor's obsession continued. He followed me, sent me explicit messages, and left sinister gifts on my doorstep. Desperation clawed at my chest. The police said they couldn't do anything until he physically harmed me, and my boss was no help. I had to take matters into my own hands. One night, I lured Victor to the diner, promising a private meeting. He arrived, eager and expectant. But as he stepped into the dimly lit restaurant, he was met with a chilling sight. The other patrons were just mannequins, and the kitchen was empty. The realization dawned on him that he was alone with me, and I had a plan. With a swift and eerie precision, I locked the diner's heavy door. Panic crossed Victor's face as he realized he had walked into a trap. I whispered, "You'll never stalk anyone again." The diner absorbed his terrified screams, and I left him to his fate, disappearing into the night. The police arrived the next morning to find a frozen Victor, forever bound to the diner's darkest secrets. Now, dear listener, remember this tale. If you ever feel threatened, take action to protect yourself. The darkness of the night can hold unimaginable horrors, but sometimes it's the darkness within that can save you. Trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to fight back when necessary. Your life may depend on it.